Yeah, I thought so too, but then I was on that call this morning, doing all these whiteboards. And I couldn't get my name. Yes. Yeah. It's like, are we? No, we're not anymore.
Yeah.
You get to appointments.
Oh, I can really settle that.
It is 5 o'clock, so they'll get started, I think. Okay, we're gonna get started. Yeah. It's 5 o'clock and we have a few people that have to scoot out right at the end of the meeting. That way, so good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming and attending our June 18th, last meeting of this school year's board meeting. I'd like to acknowledge with thanks and honoring that we work and play, learn on the unceded traditional territories of the Gitxsan, Haisla, Nisga'a, Tsimshian, and Leamington Native peoples. Noting that our trustee Julia, with us, is in Prince George. We're honored to work with their children and privileged to live on these lands. Thank you everyone for joining in online. Mike, I need to ask you, you're on twice. Are you there? Or what's happening as to why you're on 2 times? He's not sitting in his chair, so I'll ask in a minute then. Okay. We'll start by introducing ourselves. I'm Margaret Borka, your board chairperson, and I'll go to my left and start with Angie.
Sure, I'm Angie Maitland, trustee from Kitimat. Garen Johnson, trustee from Kitimat.
Am I right?
Wayne Jones, trustee from Stewart.
Ed Harrison, trustee from Terrace.
Julia?
Hello, everyone. Julia Sundell, from elected official from Hazelton, currently living in Clayton, Tenay Territory. Thank you.
Don't see Mike on the picture, the camera yet, so we'll wait a minute and I'll ask Tracy to introduce her staff or to assist with introducing.
Good afternoon, Tracy McMillan, Superintendent of Schools. And on the screen, we have Kieran joining us. And Kieran is our Director of Human Resources. Oh, there she is.
Yes. Hi, Karen.
Good
Good
afternoon,
evening,
Kieran.
everyone.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
And in the room, we'll start with Philip, if you could introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Good evening, hello everyone. Philip Aaron, Director of Instruction and Learning Services.
Thank you, Philip.
Good evening, everyone. Tina McDonald, District Principal, Curriculum Support.
Nice to see you, Tina.
Hello everyone, I'm Rob Shibley and I'm Director of Facility Services.
Welcome, Bob. And Ginger.
Ginger Fuller, Secretary Treasurer.
And to my right, we have Carol.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We have to send regrets on behalf of Julie and the Cars.
Don't see Mike back up again, so I'll Jocelyn introduce herself.
Okay, is that allowed, guys? I'm Jocelyn Bay, Terrace District Teachers Union President and Co-President of COTF.
Welcome. So just a couple of things to report on before we start our agenda. June is our Indigenous History Month, and it's a time that we can celebrate diverse cultures, achievements, and resilience of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. It's a time of reflecting on the history as we all collectively embrace reconciliation and a journey of continual learning. It's also National Indigenous Peoples Day, being recognized on June 21st, although there was a little bit of a difference in Terrace because they celebrated early for several reasons. But our schools will be celebrating on June 21st, or that week of June 21st as they can, to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Days, support the learning of the history of Indigenous people, having a joyful week of learning and cultural appreciation. June is also Pride Month, and our school district will be bringing awareness to the LGBTQ2S community, and it's a time when we celebrate and we continue to strive to have creating safe, inclusive, and welcoming space for all of our learners and educators and staff. We will continue to work as an organization to develop and implement inclusion, respect, equity, diversity, and anti-racism. We are full of year-end activities. I saw our superintendent's calendar here today. It is full of all kinds of great graduation things happening for the end of our school year for this June. We've had graduation celebrations, we've had employee service awards, we've had retirements. And on behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome all of our students, or wish all of our students and staff a well-deserved, enjoyable, and safe summer days. We have a presentation, but I'll finish my notes first, and then we can have Philip Barron come up, Director of Instruction, who will share with us his report on the role of student voices. But just as a reminder, the question period will be at the end of the meeting for about 10 minutes. And we can have questions on items that pertain to the agenda, and can we'll answer them if we can. If not, we can delay answers and get back to you. And there is also the way to email questions before 4 p.m. on the day before the meeting to Carol, and so that we can be prepared to answer questions. And then our next meeting, it's all going well, will be September 24th. So after a great summer holidays. So I'm going to turn it to Philip to go ahead and do your presentation. I still don't see Trustee Maxim on the screen, so we may interrupt at some point just to ask him about why he's got two screens open.
Fantastic. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to share this information with you this evening. A couple of things, just as Carol is pulling up the slides for us, a couple of things about this. This is year 4 of the work with Student Voice. And I want to first acknowledge the support that I have received from the district team here, from the board as well, for allowing me to be able to continue to do this work. The schools, the support that I received from the principals, vice principals, classroom teachers who allow students to miss time from class to spend time with me doing this work. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the similarities and some of the differences of what we've done in the last year and a bit. And I've got Trustee Harrison's question about similarities and differences in the work. So I'll make some comments about that and some of the data and some of the results and information as we go along. On the next slide is a quote that I've used the last couple of years when I've shared this, and I think this resonates. And I'd like to let everybody in the room know that I've made this presentation 7 times in the last 2.5 weeks at all of the middle schools and high schools with our young people who participate in Student Voice. There were some staff who sat in on the sessions and joined the sessions. This is a quote by Michael Fullen from 2021 who talks about children, even young ones, are our most powerful change makers. And I think we are beginning to get that message out to our young people in the schools. There is a belief, there's more of an awareness now that we are very interested in hearing what our young people have to say. And it goes far beyond something like the Student Voice work that's been going on here for the last few years. We talk about the student learning survey that students participate in. We talk about the NDI, the YDI, and we let young people know that they have lots of opportunities that go far beyond our Student Voice sessions. On the next slide, just an explanation about what Student Voice is. It's basically, essentially, ultimately, it's an opportunity for young people to share their thoughts, ideas, and opinions with us in terms of what's going on in their school and their classrooms. And on the next slide, I wanted to throw in another quote, and I shared this with the young people, and the young people actually enjoyed kind of talking about this in the schools the last couple of weeks. It's not enough just to listen to Student Voice, and this is something that comes up over and over again, like questions: is this really going to make a difference? Are people really going to listen to what we have to say? Educators have an ethical imperative to do something with students, and that's why meaningful student involvement is vital to school improvement. I'd like to draw a connection between the work that's being done with young people to listen to them and the school improvement plans that our principals and vice principals and our school leadership teams work on each and every year. And on the next slide are some photos of some different schools where the work took place. Essentially, it was an interactive session where we had questions. The questions went up on chart paper. Each student had an opportunity to write down the response, put the sticky note up on the board. So kind of like a carousel. On the next slide, we talk about the benefits. This is a slide that I shared last year. Some of the benefits of student voice. We know that if student voice is taking place in our schools, that student engagement will increase. Collaboration between students and staff also increases. Youth mental health improves. And it has a significant impact on the school culture. When I was going over this in schools over the last couple of weeks, I emphasized this bottom piece of information that I came across a year ago. Research indicates that students who believe they have a voice in school are 7 times more likely to be academically motivated than students who feel they don't have a voice. That's significant, especially at a time when our achievement data and results aren't great in several areas. And so I think student voice is another piece, another layer that we need to continue to emphasize, and we need to continue to do some work on this so that our young people are going to be 7 times more likely to be engaged in their academics. On the next slide, just a little synopsis again of what it looked like. So a little different. I take different groups of kids each and every year. So last year we had around 147, 150 students who participated. This year it was 107. All 7 of our middle and secondary schools were involved. The group sizes range from 10 to 28. Some of our schools, like Kitimat City High, for example, Parkside Secondary, they obviously have smaller enrollment. So sometimes the numbers were a little bit smaller. We start in circle together, we ground ourselves, we get to know one another. Some people call them icebreakers. We take that from a compassionate systems leadership strategy. It's an opportunity for us to kind of start in circle, take a couple deep breaths, think about why we're there, and then we spend some time getting to know each other. A big difference this year compared to last year was we increased the number of questions. We went from 16 from actually the previous couple of years to 25 this year. We added a couple of additional questions around youth mental health, additional questions around anti-racism and discrimination, and then artificial intelligence, which we have started to do some work with at the district level here. All the responses were anonymous, written on sticky notes, and then attached to the large chart paper, as I mentioned. The groups were great, they were engaged, they were curious. There was lots of dialogue throughout the sessions as well. So what we did when we did these with our young people was we chunked the questions into groups of 4 or 5. We talked about the questions when they were up on the wall, asked if the young people had any questions about themselves, answered any questions they had, and then they began the process of putting the responses up. After those 4 or 5 questions, we gathered back, had a quick little debrief check-in session before we proceed to the next 4 or 5. Okay. On the next slide, a couple more pictures of some of our young people. Hazelton Secondary on the left, Caledonia on the right. And when I put on the previous slide where the students were engaged, I will be completely honest with you. This was the most engaged the kids were of any year that I've done this. They could not wait to get up and get in there and put answers. And their answers on their sticky notes, there weren't very many 1 or 2 word responses. There were a ton of sticky notes that were full of answers. And there was actually a couple of young people who filled out multiples for like 1 question response and then stuck them together. And then they would make a train going down, and that would be 1 response that we had to record after the sessions were done. Some of the data and information is coming up here on the next slide. Here's some of the questions, what they look like. I'd be happy to share all 25 with you if you want to take a look at some point. Some of them, do you feel welcome at school? Why or why not? Do you have friends? Are there opportunities to make friends or meet new people? If you could change anything about school, what would it be? Who believes in you? Who believes you can succeed? Is there anything that would help you in school? Looking for examples. Do you have the opportunity to have your voice heard in school? Would you like more of an opportunity to have your voice heard in the school or in the school district? I'll make a quick comment if I can about that question there. On my first visit early in the spring, the response to that was around 50-50. Half the kids, half the students said yes, they'd love more of an opportunity. The other half said no, I'm scared to speak in front of people. I don't really want to do that, etc., etc. On my second visits over the last few weeks, that number changed dramatically. After we had a chance to sit down, debrief, I went back and shared the information with them, their responses. I would say we probably had 2/3, 3/4 or more who said they want more of this. They would love an opportunity to have their voice heard. And several of them said they would love to have an opportunity to do this at the district level as well. AI, do you believe that artificial intelligence can improve the learning experience for students? I think some of the young people thought I was trying to trick them with that. So some of them were like, no, I don't use that, never, ever, ever. But when we talked about it, and when we pulled it apart, I explained, not trying to trick you on this. This is like, it's there. one of the examples that I asked was, you know, how many people in the room download music or listen to music on whatever platform, and so of course every hand went up, and I said, well, when you do that, does it ask you if you would like to see a playlist, or would you like to see this other kind of music? So they said yes. I said, that's artificial intelligence, those are the algorithms that are built into AI. And I explained that we're learning about it at the district level as well. Big on the mental health piece here, and there are some examples in a couple of slides. Where do you go for mental health support? How familiar are you with the mental health supports and resources at your school? I will make several comments on that in a few moments. And have you seen or heard any racist or discriminatory actions at the school? What could your school do to eliminate that? I will also comment on that a little bit more in a moment. Next slide. So here's a couple of sample questions. The first one, do you feel welcome at school? So we had 107 students who participated. There were 106 responses to this. One of the stipulations that I explained to the young people is they are not obligated to answer if they don't feel comfortable. So we got 106 of 107. 85 responses were yes, so that boiled down to 80%. 11 were no, 10%, 10 said sometimes. Many responses indicated that staff plans were very welcoming at school, which is wonderful. And a couple quotes at the bottom. I feel welcomed by the teachers in the morning because they say good morning. That's great. And then the next comment, sometimes people make me feel unwelcome. So when I was going over this with the young people in the schools over the last few weeks, we pulled this one apart and we talked about it and said, obviously there's some good news here, but there's another story there that kind of concerns us. We would like to know a little bit more about the 10% who have said no, they don't feel welcome at school, and then the 10% who said sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So I talked about drilling down into the evidence or the information or the data. I talked about digging in a bit deeper and having conversations with them. The second one here is one of our mental health questions. Do you get enough sleep? Why or why not? Again, these same types of questions are found in the MDI, the Middle Years Development Instrument. 35% said yes, they get enough sleep. 50% said no. 15% said sometimes. And based on the responses that were on some of the sticky notes, many of our students are dealing with challenges balancing school schedules, work schedules, and other extracurricular activities. Very honest response here, no, because I'm always on my phone. And this young person gets full marks. I normally get a good amount of sleep. It's called the sleep schedule. I found it quite funny when I was how many people are on a sleep schedule. That's fantastic. That's great. On the next slide, this one is specifically around mental health. And I know that there was some interest here around this and the part played in the student voice session. So the question, where do you go for mental health support? So these are the 3 top responses, not in any particular order. Parents, friends, and counselors were the 3 most common answers to that question. There were lots of other responses as well. Community support. Several students said they don't go anywhere for mental health support. Several said I work on my own mental health myself, etc., etc. The second question, what parts of school give you stress or negatively affect your mental health? Tests and quizzes, specific subjects, and then deadlines, amount of schoolwork, and amount of homework. At this point, I'd like to mention that all the data and all the results went to the schools at the end of May. The request was made for it to be shared with school staffs at the June staff meeting. I think for the most part that was able to happen, but 1 or 2 people said their June staff meeting agenda was a bit full, so they were going to talk about doing it at the end of June on the admin day. I think this is really important, figuring out what that balance needs to look like for our young people. There are going to need to be tests and quizzes at times, and maybe some homework outside their deadlines, but I will also pass along and say that we are more flexible in the school system than we ever have been in terms of things like deadlines, for example. There's a lot more flexibility than there ever has been. So there's a lot of effort being made to try to support young people and alleviate some of that stress that they're feeling with things. Third one, how familiar are you with mental health supports resources in your school? Okay, I will be honest, this one concerns me and we have work to do on this, and we're actually developing a plan to do some work on this before school start up. Very somewhat and not aware, not familiar. And again, I'll mention, these are not in any particular order. There were a lot of responses where our young people aren't aware of the supports that are available. There were responses that indicated they didn't know. Some students said they didn't know who their counselors were in their school. Some students didn't know where the counselors were located in their school. Some students in a couple of schools, when we were having some dialogue around those questions before students were filling it out, someone put up their hand and said, I've heard of Foundry, and then a kid said, Foundry, what's Foundry? And those were kids in town here, so all of this, and we've had some conversations, some of us, like, we need to continue, and I can tell you, when I was at Stina for a long time. We got the updates every month from Foundry. We had it on our slideshows on our TV monitors. We made announcements on the PA system. We included it in newsletters. The information was shared constantly, and we still had students who sometimes say, I've never heard of Foundry, and we were like, okay. So I do think we need to do a better job of this collectively around the district. Yeah, okay. Next slide. Again, some more pictures of engagement, Kitimat City High on the left, Parkside top right, and take your pick, that could have been any one of the schools there in the bottom right hand corner. Next slide, please, thank you. I picked one school in particular. How do you like to be treated in school? So this came out of one of our schools, like a young adult who works after school and have people be kind and patient with us. With respect, where it says times 14, that means 14 students in that group said the same thing. Like I'm worth as much as anyone else, like a student, actually smart, and you can see the rest of the responses there. Very telling what our young people are saying in terms of how they like to be treated in school. I love the bottom one, I like to be treated how I want to be treated. That's fantastic. Next slide, please. So the responses, again, this slide, similar to what I showed a year ago, I made a couple little tweaks with this. Every student was able to say something positive about their experience in school. That was the first question that was asked of every group. And it was a leading question. Tell me something you like or enjoy about school, please. So I was looking for something positive, and I wanted to start the conversation and dialogue in the sessions off on a positive note. So every single student had something positive to say about their experience in school. Friends, food programs, some teachers, some courses, some programs, having routine, somewhere safe to go, etc., etc. The majority, more than 80% of students feel connected to peers and our staff. It's about 82% actually, which is good. But there still leaves a little bit of work that needs to be done. Foods, clubs, teams, extracurricular activities in some classes were all listed as reasons students go to school. There were a lot of responses in there as well around, I want to graduate, I want to get a job, I have goals I have set for myself, I want to get a scholarship, things like that. I want to go to trade school, I want to go to arts. Nearly 2/3 of the students involved would like more student voice opportunities to share their thoughts and opinions, and I will chat a little bit more about that towards the end. Many students find schools to be a welcoming place. Last week when I did this, the last few weeks, and Tracy was at Stina with us, I asked the young people, I said, okay, in that little cloud there, that thought cloud, what's the key word? Okay. That's the biggest, that's a big one for sure. There's another one in there too that I think jumps out at us too. Welcoming is huge in there for sure, yeah. Tracy knows the answer because she was in the session with us. I wonder here about this word, many. I wonder about that one. So that tells us that, you know, the majority, a lot of our kids find schools welcoming, but we also have that group who don't. And the question that I put to the young people over the last few weeks was, can you imagine, and maybe it's somebody in the room, when we were at Stina, for example, maybe somebody in the room at Stina was one of the people who said they don't feel welcome coming to school every single day. That probably can't feel great. I believe we have to celebrate our successes, and I believe we have to recognize our challenges and do some work around those challenges as well. Students have some excellent ideas how to combat racism and discrimination. I'll chat a little bit more about that, I think, before the end. Next slide, please. That's a picture at HSS that we took outside in the spring. Next one, please. That group was fantastic as well. They were great. This is a slide that was in last year. I made a couple of small tweaks to it. So what do we want to do with student voice? Well, we want to amplify it more. I have some ideas around next year how we do this. Help educators know our learners by keeping the communication chain open, by sharing the data and results with schools. We're making sure that, and I have to say, I think now more than ever, I think teachers, I think educators have a better understanding about our young people than ever before, but we still have work to do. Recognize students as change agents. I was posed with a question multiple times. Is this really going to change anything? Could this change? And the response was yes, it can. It can change things. It depends upon what you're looking at and what you want to do. There are also expectations laid out for us by the Ministry of Education. There are certain things that none of us can change at this time, but there are lots of things in the school. And a lot of these questions were specifically designed around what could we change, what would have a meaningful impact in your school. Strengthen and increase student voice opportunities at the school and district level. Okay, so a couple things. What we would like to do is we would like to kick off the school year at the end of September, beginning of October with a student voice activity in each one of our middle and secondary schools. Elementary is on the radar. We may get down that path next year. We're going to see. And then towards the end of October, beginning of November, we would like to have a student voice summit. So we would like to bring 4, 5, 6 young people in from each one of our middle schools and high schools and spend half a day, 3/4 of a day together working on some things like this and developing some plans. We would like to invite a bunch of adults to join us, like the adults in this room. We also had some conversations, some questions came up about what does it mean at the district level. We have had occasions in the past, and I think a lot of people are aware that we've had young people periodically join us for presentations or committee meetings. I think I'd like to do some more of that work next year if there is an appetite for that. I did put the idea out to the schools and I did ask principals, vice principals in the fall, because we had hoped to have a student voice district-wide advisory group in place this year. There wasn't much of an uptake on that in the fall, and I think part of that was because we didn't go in person, do the visits, et cetera, et cetera. I think in the beginning of the year, the kids were too focused on getting their own selves organized. And then we'll embed some compassionate systems leadership tools into that work, like the check-in at the beginning. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, thank you, yes, okay. And then the next one I think is the 3 questions, is that right, Carol? Okay, so before we get to those questions, I wanted to share this, and if you want to just pass them around the table, that's great. Another thing that we did this year that we didn't do in the past was we did a kind of an exit strategy with our young people on the last day, and we gave them the opportunity. We said, if you want to ask me questions, if there's anything on here that jumped out at you, throw it down on the sticky note. So I'll just pass this, and if you want to take a quick scan, and then you want to do some of these, I mean, it's great. There are a lot of young people who want more of an opportunity to do this work. Some of them said, no, I'm okay, I don't have anything, that's okay, that's great. But what came out loud and clear more so than every other year was that young people are looking for validation. They want to know that their voice counts and it matters in schools. They're not necessarily looking to change all the courses or teachers or the structure of school. They want some say and they want some input in some of the things that really affect them and really matter to them. So I'll pass this out here if you want to take the notes. There was one in there that Mr. Barron should get a raise or should retire or something like that. And I said, I can't put that up. People, are you kidding me? That's funny. The questions. What do we want to do with these? What stood out to you most in the presentation about student voice?
Well, I was glad we still have the racism comment, because last year there was a lot of racism, believe me, all year.
Yeah.
And so that jumped out at me. I was actually looking for it to see if it's still a problem.
Yes, thank you. Definitely. I think I said I was going to talk about that a bit more, and I probably should have. So yes. So the racism and discrimination, we still had 2 or 3 questions in there around that. We still have issues and challenges in all of our schools, as we know. There is work that's being done here that we started at the district level, and work going on in schools. One of the schools last year in particular, every single response that came back on one of the questions indicated that in their school, every student felt that there were racist and discriminatory actions taking place. That school took immediate action for this current school year. I was really impressed, really. We need to do more work around this, clearly as a district and clearly as schools, the school teams. It's a big issue, big challenge, yeah. Is there a specific area you'd like to learn more about in future student voice sessions? Or did you hear anything about student voice today that perhaps you hadn't considered before?
I think so, Pastor Hampton.
Okay.
Oh, Mike, what's your hand up? Mike, you've got 2 screens up for us. How come you've got 2 on? Is it just
We
one?
got 2 computers going.
Oh, you have 2, okay.
Okay, so I got a number of questions. What stood out to me most in the presentation about student voice is that the students aren't presenting this this handout, and I'm wondering why we don't have a group of students presenting this. You don't have to answer that. But on the one page here, it says that students who believe they have a voice in school are 7 times more likely to be academically motivated than students who do not believe that they have a voice. And I would like to see some data on how motivated students are when they have parental involvement in their education. And the only time that the word parent is only used in your presentation on one page. So that is something that I would like to see. I noticed that you list 9 sample questions, and you have 6 sets of data, but only 2 of those have meaningful data where you give the students responses to the questions with a breakdown of the percentage. And I would really like to see the data for the rest of the questions. One other thing I had, and that might be a little bit sidelining, because you had a question in there in your sample questions about AI and AI's benefits in teaching. And I spent a little bit of money, and I installed AI on one of my computers, and I played around with it for a bit. And I found out that the AI always lies every single time. It pretends to know the answers. It pretends that it has gone through diagnostic procedures, but when you dive into it, it's mimic it. It pretends that it has access to the internet. It pretends to create files, but it doesn't actually do those things. And I found that the whole purpose of having that thing on my computer was a device that was designed to lie to me. That's the end of some of those were questions and some of those were statements. Thank you.
Thanks. I would have had students join me today, except they're in the midst of their final exams and projects this week. So next year we would want to do this a little bit earlier so that we could have students present. Absolutely. I think I mentioned earlier, we'd love to have students in a few more times and involved in some of this work. So thank you.
So question 2, is there a specific, I'd like to learn more in the future from student voice, how we get through the barrier of even talking about mental health. There's a stigma attached with mental health, and how do we address the stigma?
Yes.
What would help them to know where they go?
That might make a great question that we can add for sure. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Other
Questions?
Do students come forward with ideas for courses or other things that they do in school?
Most of the schools have a mechanism in place for that, yes, yeah. Some schools have a student council in place that runs over the course of the year, or a leadership group. Oftentimes, it's led by a teacher or a group of teachers, and if they have ideas or suggestions around that, they can go through that. Course selection process as well, that usually kicks off. We used to start in Skeena, Caledonia, January, February. Input ideas, suggestions, questions for courses from kids. So usually there's something in place. I'm not sure if every school has it, but I know several do. Okay. Good. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Appreciate your time.
Like
Yeah, August.
Sorry. Okay, so we do have a quorum. And if I could have a motion to approve the agenda or any additions that need to go on to the agenda. Somebody so moved. And seconder,
Julia.
all in favor of the agenda? I don't see Mike again, but passed. Okay, next is 4.1, the regular meeting of the board, May 28th, 2025. A motion on page 2 that the regular meeting board minutes are approved. A mover, thank you. Minchie, second.
Second.
Dave. Any questions on the minutes? All in favor? Pass, thank you. There was no business arising from the minutes, so there's nothing under point 6, and there's no correspondence this last month. So we can move on to 8.1, the strategic plan year-end report for 2024-2025, and it's on page 14. So
Actually,
give it to you.
Superintendent's report, is it okay if I provide that
You
first?
first, yeah, whichever way you'd like.
Alrighty. So page 15, so as we close out the school year, it's been really inspiring to attend school events that celebrate our students' learning, achievements, and sense of community. The June report always seems to focus more on celebrating learning, and we definitely could incorporate everything that's been happening the past month, 6 weeks towards the end of school. And we definitely want to acknowledge and celebrate the growth of all learners this year. And with many, many heartfelt congratulations to our grade 12 graduating students. And some of them have had partial ceremonies, prom nights, and the 20th, all 3 of our high schools have their walking across the stage ceremonies. As well, on page 15, we want to sincerely thank our retiring staff for their years of dedicated service. And in one of the photos with special recognition to Cindy Hansen for 46 years of contributions to the school district. On page 16, I'm highlighting the Maker Days in Terrace and Kitimat. And these are just so powerful and learning opportunities that showcase student engagement in trades and applied skills. And it was amazing to observe learners engaged in electrical projects, pipe fitting, drywall, plumbing, or to learn about firefighting and haircutting. And it was really nice to meet many of the community sponsors, and a special acknowledgement going out to the NTEC staff for the tremendous amount of behind the scenes work that goes into organizing these events. So we thank them for their dedication and effort, and you'll hear more about those events further on in the report. And as well, June is Indigenous History Month and National Indigenous Peoples Day, a time for us to honor the knowledge, cultures, and contributions of Indigenous peoples and deepen our shared understanding and reconciliation efforts. And as well, we continue to focus on student success and equity, and recently reviewed the How Are We Doing report, which informs our planning for Indigenous learner outcomes, and you'll hear more about this report and the valuable insight that it gives to us. And as we target areas like numeracy and literacy and graduation. So again, we're wrapping up the year, and we will remain committed to creating schools where our learners feel safe and valued. And again, on page 17, you can see another graduating class of students. Those students are from Caledonia. On page 18, as well, you'll see photos from the Kitimat City High graduating students and their families, and congratulations to them for achieving this important milestone. And I really liked their motto, and I think we can all agree, their motto of the tassel was worth the hassle was definitely worth it. And again, we wish the graduates all the best. On page 19, it features the Terrace Maker Day event as a recap. Over 200 grade 7 students engaged in hands-on exploration of trades and careers during the Terrace Maker Day. And it just gives them, again, opportunities to explore potential careers, pathways, and options for them. Learners were able to rotate through various stations. And again, we thank the community partners, local industry, who generously gave of their time to help with this event. And on page 20, you can see more photos from the Terrace Day Maker event. On page 21, it's featuring the Kitimat Maker Day, and again, brought together different and nearly 200 students to explore the trades and make connections with the community, and many community partners, again, generating and donating time and equipment to make this day successful. So really great experience to see our young learners flourish in, again, a number of different environments. Page 22 highlights the new French immersion K-6 assessments. And this was created by CMSD educators, and they implemented a new French immersion K-6 literacy assessment tailored to early language development. So this new tool offers a more accurate way and meaningful to assess early literacy skills in French immersion classrooms. And we really appreciate the work of the team and the teachers who are bringing this tool to life. And also there's a early learning update. So Terrace's Strong Start and Just Before programs collaborated on enriching field trips to foster exploration and community connection. And the early learning educators continue to offer high quality play-based programming grounded in the early learning framework. And you can see from the great pics, they really enjoyed themselves on various field trips. On page 23, highlights a comprehensive new K-6 literacy plan has been developed and will launch in the 2025-2026 school year. And also we'd like to extend our appreciation to retiring literacy lead teacher Laura Gray for her lasting impact on Coast Mountain School District learners. So she heads off into retirement, and this important initiative again reflects our district's commitment to building strong foundational literacy skills for learners, which is also a key focus in the board's strategic plan. And at the bottom, you'll see Bear Valley students who were engaged in experiential STEM learning by building and testing cardboard ramps to explore motion and measurement. And these types of projects really help promote collaboration, problem solving, and deep understanding through world learning and inquiry. Page 24, a really timely event. So Caledonia Secondary hosted a powerful simulation to raise awareness about the consequences of impaired and distracted driving. So through realism and storytelling, the students reflected on safe decision-making ahead of the graduation season. Very interesting. And again, it just shows how you can incorporate various aspects of the curriculum, from drama to acting to health and safety, all in one. Page 25. So there's a great deal of important work that takes place behind the scenes in various departments across Coast Mountain School District that contributes to learner success. So moving forward, we will take the time to feature these departments throughout the year and share insights into the many moving pieces that make up a school district. So, for example, the finance department, they play a key role in aligning resources with strategic priorities to ensure that every dollar supports student learning and well-being. This year's budget process included meaningful engagement with department leaders, partner groups, and ITEP to reflect community values and educational goals. And collaboration with the Intertribal Education Committee was especially important this year in preparing for the implementation of Bill 40 and enhancing opportunities for Indigenous learners. And we extend our sincere thanks and appreciation to our Secretary Treasurer, Ginger Puller, and the finance team for their commitment to transparency, inclusion, and thoughtful financial stewardship. And there you can see featured a photo of the finance team. And also at the bottom, we recognize that June is National Pride Month. And again, time to celebrate diversity and continue our collective responsibility to create safe, inclusive, and welcoming school communities for all students, staff, and families. Page 26. So I won't go into too much detail. We just heard from Philip and a presentation about the importance of student voice and how it helps us build more responsive, connected school communities and supports more student well-being. And when I attended that session, it's definitely clear that the learners are deeply engaged and they're asking questions, but not only asking questions, but they're offering solutions as to how they would like to change schools in a good way to make them more inclusive, supportive, and responsive. And this work is already guiding our work, such as strengthening mental health supports. And at the bottom, you can read about Kitimat City High students. They earned industry certifications through a hands-on workplace readiness program with Aspect Safety. So really interesting that the learners operated industrial equipment such as skid steers, aerial boom lifts, and telehandlers. Again, valuable skills that can lead directly to workforce readiness. And the final page just highlights some of the following out. And again, there's still a number of activities that will happen later this month. So some of those may be featured in the September superintendent's report.
So thank you for your report. Lots happening. Can I have a motion that the superintendent of schools monthly report to the regular board meeting of June 18th, 2025 be received as presented?
So moved.
You second, Angie, you got it? Any questions on the report? Mike, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I have a few. Back on page 25, it says that these conversations ensure transparency. That's so I'll just do the whole sentence, I guess. Budget Working Committee, including reps from the Coast Mountain Ministers Association, Teachers Federation, Union of Public Employees, First Nation and District DPA PAC. These conversations ensure transparency. Transparency to who? Well, is this transparency to the public or transparency only among these groups?
Both, because within these groups, they are part of the public as well. And they have representatives that sit on this committee, then that go back as well to share information. So it's both.
Okay. Now, I'll leave that for now. Now, back to page 23. It speaks about the literacy plan update, and it says that the plan has been developed. Oh, am I on the right one here? Develop a comprehensive literacy plan. This plan will be shared with schools and educators at the start of the school year. Will this plan be shared with the public?
I'm sorry, what's your question?
It says that the literacy team has a plan. It has
Yeah.
a comprehensive district K to 6 literacy plan. The plan will be shared with schools and educators.
Yes.
Will that plan be shared with the public?
Yes, there will be a framework of the plan that will be posted on our website. So it will be, there, a portion of it will be public.
A portion? Okay. Thank you. Now back to page 22. It says that collaborated to develop a new K-6 French assessment tool, replacing the previous GB Plus reading assessment. Where did the GB Plus reading assessment come from? And what made it necessary to replace it?
We'll take the question, thank you.
Yeah, we'll have to get back to you. Yeah, it's an operational type question. Do you have any more, Mike?
No, that's it for that presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So all in favor of receiving them as presented? Pass, thank you. Now we'll move on to the strategic plan. Sorry, I was trying to rush.
No worries.
Okay, so Amy, the superintendent will report on the strategic plan year-end report.
Okay, 8.1, so I'll just provide a brief overview, which you have in your package. And we provided various updates over the year on these items. A formal one previously in February, and as well, anything connected to the strat plan finds its way into the superintendent reports, Indigenous education reports as well. So for the literacy implementation, we've made significant progress in early literacy by training all K-6 staff in evidence-based tools like youth obedience, creating a comprehensive literacy plan, and we will begin work on developing a grade to 7 to 9 literacy framework in the fall. For Indigenous learner services, this year, every Indigenous student was connected with a dedicated support worker or advisor, and tools like EdPlan Insight helped us track progress and adjust services mid-year. As well, mentorship, targeted programming, and cross-school initiatives strengthen student identity, transitions, and academic success. Pertaining to the implementation and support the use of electronic dashboard to guide evidence-based decision-making. The EdPlan Insight dashboard was rolled out and well received, with principals trained to use data for instructional decisions. School leaders are supported with tools and coaching to interpret data, lead collaborative staff discussions, and use evidence to set literacy and achievement goals. Pertaining to recruitment and retention of educators, a robust recruitment campaign and expanded mentorship program helped us welcome more student teachers and support new hires, including those working on letters of permission. And I know that we've already offered and some have accepted graduates who were placed in our schools for practicum placements. So that's really great. Strengthening district communications. So some of the communication enhancements, we enhanced parent communication with tools like School Messenger and My Bus Stop. This redesign reports for clarity and expanded our social media presence. As well, we have begun exploring the role of AI, artificial intelligence, in education to stay responsive to emerging trends. In regards to supporting culturally respectful and responsive practices for Indigenous learning opportunities, staff across the district engaged in learning about Indigenous histories, legislation, and cultural responsiveness. And events like the LEA Forum and Moose Hide campaign deepen our understanding, while the role model program brought rich hands-on Indigenous knowledge into classrooms, and the role model program was expanded this year. Engaging students and communities in anti-racism. So some of those initiatives included student voice sessions, led the way in shaping our district's anti-racism work, highlighting lived experiences and recommending solutions. As well, schools received ongoing resources and action grants, which will continue to empower youth-led initiatives next year. Pertaining to Indigenous experiential learning, partnerships with local knowledge holders help deliver meaningful land-based and seasonal round learning, from salmon preservation to drum ceremonies. And the Gitxsan Language Immersion Program was launched this year, deepening our commitment to Indigenous language and culture. In regards to the mental health strategy, so a new K-12 mental health action plan was developed in partnership with BC Children's Hospital, and Student Voice helped shape priorities. The Integrated Child and Youth Team also supported over 250 students, and new resources like QR-coded service maps will help youth access care more easily. About the Compassionate Systems Leadership, which is now in our third year of CSL for short work. We're continuing to embed systems thinking and empathy into our leadership practices. And more learning is planned for August, especially for new leaders, to support connections and healthier school cultures. So we will all of the principals, vice principals, education team will be spending a day with Joanne Schroeder for very focused sessions. And the goals pertaining to healthy food access in schools, our nutrition and food programs, with expanded support from the Feeding Futures Fund and upcoming federal investments, our school food programs now follow nutrition standards and serve more students. New pilot models are being introduced to schools this fall, which will continue to reduce stigma, improve access, and reflect local culture and local food options. So, thank you for your report. And the recommended action is that the board receive for information the year-end update for the 2024-2025 strategic plan as presented. Can I have a motion? Someone moves that motion? Julia, thank you. Seconder, Ed, any questions for the report? Mike, you have a question? You're muted, Mike. Do you have a question or not? Sorry.
Okay, yeah, sorry, didn't realize I was muted. Okay, yeah, page 5 of your presentation there. This, the head of this, the title of this page is Recruitment and Retention Strategies, but I don't see anything about retention strategies. I would like to know what we're doing about retention strategies.
So part of the retention, a big piece, Mike, is the teacher orientations and the mentorship program. So that has been enhanced and expanded. So research and data will show that if we support with the onboarding and offer continuous mentorship opportunities, so mentorship can take and look like many things. If they're partnered with teachers in the schools, if they have connections with district staff, help and support, and some of the new teachers, they're partnered with retired experienced teachers to help them through those first couple of years, then data shows they're more likely to remain and stay in the teaching profession. So that has really been expanded in the district. So that's one of the main pieces. And that is actually in response to requests that we've received from teachers and the feedback. They have asked for increased opportunities to receive mentorship. Thank you.
Okay, further questions?
And thank you for that answer.
Okay, all in favor of receipt of the report? Yes, thank you. So now we move on to the Indigenous Education Report, which is on page 43. And again, it's the superintendent of schools who's going to present a report that we've received.
Thank you. Okay, page 44. Again, we always like to acknowledge Indigenous support workers, role models, elders, and the teachers in classrooms, as well as our school admin and staff, for collaborating and working together to make these events happen. Page 45 and page 46. So this is a really, I think, important and new opportunity. So this year we held a local education agreement forum for principals and vice principals. And this really marked a significant step forward in strengthening relationships between Coast Mountain School District and Indigenous partners. It was co-designed with input from the Intertribal Education Committee, the Coast Mountains administrators, and the district staff. So collective ownership and design. The event created space for school leaders and Indigenous representatives to engage in meaningful dialogue about responsibility, respect, and reconciliation. And ITEC members helped shape the content, co-facilitate the sessions, and participated in a panel, as well as the PVP. So it was a collaborative effort, and including the speakers of the panel. So this really, again, I think solidifies and confirms our work and efforts to the creation and support of the Indigenous Education Council and the work with Bill to 40. So again, we want to thank our principals, vice principals, and ITEC members, Indigenous education team members who helped shape this learning activity so that the LEA will be living commitments, not just documents grounded in collaboration and student success. Page 47 features the Moose 5 campaign, Standing Up Against Violence. So across our schools, students and staff participated in the Moose 5 campaign, raising awareness about gender-based violence and promoting allyship, respect, and reconciliation. Page 48. You will notice that students from Cassie Hall explored the history, ecology, and cultural significance of the Kitsalis Canyon during a field trip. And again, we always thank those who are hosts and create such a warm and welcoming environment for on-the-land learning. Page 49. Knowledge holder Shailene Pauls led a rich session on Indigenous food sovereignty, guiding students through traditional foods, plant knowledge, and seaweed harvesting. And that was at Skeena Middle School. Page 50. Hildalis Salmon Release Project engaged students in science, sustainability, and Indigenous values through experiential learning. And this powerful partnership with fisheries, staff, and elders remind us of the deep ties between education, land, and community. Page 51. highlights the drum blessings that took place across Terrace schools. So the newly made school drums were formally blessed by Elder Anne McDames, symbolically breathing life into these instruments for cultural learning. And the blessings marked an important moment of respect, renewal, and pride in Indigenous identity. Page 52. You will learn about information pertaining to the Indigenous grad photo shoots. So this initiative gives Indigenous grads the opportunity to be seen and celebrated in regalia, affirming identity and cultural pride. And now in its third year, the initiative continues to grow. And thanks to the leadership of the Indigenous support workers and school teams across the district, it's now offered at all of our high schools. Page 53. Students at Bear Valley engaged in a culturally rich hands-on learning through ribbon skirt making and basket weaving. Just really interesting and just really intricate details. I saw some of the works when we were visiting the school last month by the kids, and just the intergenerational knowledge sharing that took place. Students were quite proud to show us some of their work, and this was under the guidance of ISW Myra McMahon. Page 54. Students joined Métis Elder Trish Paulson and ISW Alexis Wright for land-based plant walks and loon beating projects, strengthening their connection to the Tsimshian territory. And these experiences blended science, art, and cultural teachings in meaningful ways. And on page 55, you can read about the beading and bracelet making that took place at Atoll Mountain View. And this was led by ISW Alexis Bright, as well as Skeena Middle School, the vests for feast workers. So a collaborative project, students created 21 vests to wear at their Indigenous year-end feast that's taking place later this week. And also, the project fostered skill building, pride, and community spirit, featuring a feather design gifted by Indigenous fashion designer Valerie Morgan. Page 56 highlights the Locker Mural Project at Hazelton Secondary, where students collaborated with artist Arlene Ness to create vibrant locker murals that reflect both cultural identity and creative expression. And the project allowed students to explore visual storytelling while learning about new techniques. And what was really neat as well about this, one of the murals was co-created by student Peyton Wesley and her father, showcasing the power of mentorship, family connection, and pride. So again, this was reinforced by student voice and belonging in the school. Page 57 are some points and a summary about the girls group year-end reflection at Caledonia, and just how some of the statements are shared in that article. And we thank ISW Stephanie Louie and supporting teachers for this initiative. Page 58. Hazelton students were on a field trip and they explored Nisga'a territory. They visited the lava beds, ocean, and museum. It was overnight, so they engaged in campfire songs and stories and cultural learnings. And the students were pretty excited when I was there last week to be heading on for that. Page 59 talks about female students from Hazelton and inspired by Indigenous women working in science and environmental stewardship. They explored fish fences, cultural burning sites, and careers that combine both traditional knowledge with Western science. And the work was led by high school teachers Stacy Brown and Stephanie Maldo, with the support from iTech and the school district. Final events was the community cultural engagement and celebration at Hazelton Secondary. So a great example of what can be done between the school and nation partnerships, bringing together students, families, elders, and community members. There were over 20 Indigenous vendors, traditional foods, dance performances. The kids were amazing. And a lot of this was organized by the Indigenous support workers, and they're featured in the photos with Pansy Wright Sims and Monica Sims. So just a special thank you for them, their invitations, but just it was great to see right from like pre-K or early learners performing and community groups right up to adults. And then the final page features funding projects for 131 that involve elders, Indigenous knowledge holders, and just some of the projects that are happening within the Indigenous Education Department.
Nice. Thank you for your report. You know, have somebody so moved that the board received for information, the Indigenous Education Report for June of 2023. So, Karen, Angie, have a good summer. Keep in touch. We still have a forum for you. Okay, that's the way it is. Okay. Any questions on the Indigenous Education Report? Mike, go ahead.
Here, there. Okay, I'm unmuted. Okay, on page 60 there, a second paragraph, it says the celebration was a collaborative effort between Hazelton Secondary School, the band government, and over 20 Indigenous vendors. I would just like to say that that is wonderful. That's what I really like to see is collaborative efforts between various parts of the community which our students need to integrate themselves into. Now, page 56, it stood out to me that on the sidebar to the lower photograph, it says that Peyton Wesley collaborated with her father on this project, this mural project, and once again, I have no words. I want to express my appreciation that collaboration happened. On page 54, on the second to last paragraph, it says, students were highly engaged, eager to see, touch, and even collect samples of the plants to bring back to the classrooms and, in many cases, take home to share with their parents. Once again, such a wonderful, wonderful thing to see in your report. Page 49. This sentence struck me because it highlights in the second to last paragraph, it highlights the words, the significance of Devil's Club. And that made me curious. Can you tell me what is the significance of Devil's Club?
There's many purposes, Mike. And when I attended a walk last month with Indigenous knowledge holders, they shared that that knowledge was specific to the walk, and then up to the knowledge holders what they wanted to share about that. So it's what was explained to me is that it's very culturally respectful to ensure that it's an Indigenous knowledge holder sharing that information. So that's why sometimes we don't go into specifics in the highlights in these reports, because we've been asked by the elders or knowledge holders to keep that information, because it's part of the oral tradition of sharing at that time.
Well, just from my own knowledge about things, my understanding is that Devil's Club is used in quite a few
Yes.
homemade medications.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
All in favor of receipt of the report for information? Pass, thank you. And we'll move on to the business committee, and we'll pass it over to trustee Harrison and our secretary treasurer.
Change my name.
Okay, it's on page 62.
It is. Okay, I'd like to call your attention to the minutes, that forward to your information. But I would like to just highlight very quickly a couple of things. The facilities transportation of the OH&S committee report, should take a look at that. And you should also take a look at Director Shidley's 5-year plan, which is on page 64. And some of the activity around schools that will be occurring over the summer.
So you so moved the minutes of the business committee forward received?
Or these for receipt.
Wayne, you second?
Yes.
Any further questions for Ed on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Passed.
Okay, page 66, the 2026-27 5-year capital plan intake call for projects. Annual 5-year capital submissions from Board of Education are used by the Ministry of Infrastructure to determine which priority capital projects may be included in the ministry's capital plan for the following year. The capital plan submissions are also provided the ministry with important insight in future capital priorities, which can be used for longer-term government planning and the determination of potential future capital funding requirements for the public education system. The Ministry of Infrastructure has issued a call for projects for the submission of the 2026-27 5-year capital plan. Capital assessment of the capital asset planning system, MyCaps, enables the ministry to issue a call for submissions for school districts' 5-year capital plans separately for major capital projects and minor capital projects with different submission dates. The submission deadlines for 2026-27 are for major capital programs June the 30th, 2025, for minor capital programs September 30th, 2025. Staggered deadlines are intended to provide the ministry with input required to initiate planning for the next budget cycle, while enabling school districts additional time and flexibility to plan over the summer. Attached is a summary of the school district's 2026-27 5-year capital plan intake, all for projects requiring the board's approval prior to submission to the ministry. The business committee reviewed the summary at its June 11th, 2025 meeting and forwards to the board for approval. The recommended action is that the board approve the 2026-27 5-year capital plan, major and minor capital projects, submission to the Ministry of Infrastructure.
I have a seconder for Ed's motions. Karen, any questions? All in favor of the approving the 5-year capital plan, major and minor capital projects? Yeah. All in, yeah, pass, thank you.
Okay, the next page that call your attention to is page 68. The draft preliminary 2025-26 annual budget model. Reference the attached draft preliminary 2025-26 annual budget, annual bylaws budget. Due to circumstances beyond our control,
And-
please note.
That. If you read the news.
The draft preliminary 2025-26 annual budget bylaw. The discussion reference the attached draft preliminary 2025-26 annual bylaw budget version 61-21-2375 3393. As directed by the board, the budget working committee has fulfilled its mandate and provided a broad opportunity for input into decision-making regarding the 2025-2026 preliminary annual budget. The business committee reviewed the draft preliminary annual budget at its June 11th, 2025 meeting and brings forward the board's consideration and adoption. Approval is required by the board to utilize capital replacement dollars through the local capital reserves up to $2,500,000 for the purchase of vehicles and equipment for the facilities and maintenance departments for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. The bylaw of the Coast Mountains Board of Education, School District 82, is required to adopt the annual budget for the fiscal year of 2025-26 pursuant to section 113 of the School Act detailed in the attached bylaw. The recommended action that the board approve the utilization of capital replacement dollars through the local capital reserves of up to $250,000 for the purchase of vehicles and equipment for the facilities and maintenance departments for the 2025-26 fiscal year.
So moved by Ed, can I have a seconder? So that's you, Wayne. Did you have your hand up to make a comment? Did you? No? Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Pass, thank you. Go ahead with the second reading.
Second is the 2026 annual budget bylaw. The budget version 61-21-5375-3393. You read it first time the 18th day of June 2025.
So moved by Ed, can I have a seconder? Thank you, Julia. Any question? All in favor? Thank you, passed.
That the third part is that the 2025-2026 annual budget bylaw version 61-21-5375-3393. You read a second time the 18th day of June 2025.
So moved by Ed, can I have a seconder, please?
Second.
Thank you, Wayne. Any question? All in favor? Pass. We now need unanimous consent to go to the third reading. All in favor of going towards third reading? Pass, thank you.
The
Lastly,
third part is that the 2025-2026 annual budget bylaw and budget version 61-21-5375-3393 be read a third time, passed and adopted the 18th day of June 2025.
so moved by Ed, seconder please. Wayne? All in favor? Passed, thank you. Okay, so I think that completed what you were doing there, Ed. I just have to find my right pages to go to the education committee.
It did.
Thank you. Page 75. All right.
Agenda item 10.2.1, it's the minutes of the education committee meeting that was held on June 11th, 2025. The recommended action is that the minutes of the education committee meeting held June 11th, 2025 be received for information. So moved.
Karen so moved, a seconder for receipt of the education. Thank you, Julia. Any questions? All in favor? Passed. All right. We'll move on to page 79.
Yeah. Meeting agenda item 10.2.2. It's the Aboriginal 2023 to 2024, how are we doing? Report highlights. Now, this is a really large package. Now, you all have it, and I would really recommend that everyone go through this and have a read. It's great information, Okay, so the presentation or no?
I could just do a few minutes if you wish.
Okay,
So Karen's going to so move that the board receive for information the report highlights of the 2023-2024 Aboriginal report. How are we doing? And Superintendent McMillan will present a few highlights, and we're all being encouraged to read and digest it, and the superintendent welcomes questions at any time, or we can have another dialogue about it as well. Once everybody has a chance to read it and think about how it links to our strategic plan and what work we need to do next year.
Sounds good. Thank you, Margaret. And just to inform the board that we will also be looking at this and presenting it and talking about it during our principal, vice principal forum in August, and getting this information shared out to schools. So if we want to revisit in the future, we can do that as well. In essence, it highlights Indigenous, non-Indigenous data results in key areas such as literacy, numeracy, graduation results. And just if you scan through the report, you will see that we have a lot of work to do in both areas. And very similar to right across the province, the lowest status scores are in the area of numeracy. To address this, beginning this fall, we will be creating and putting a working group together, teachers, again, partners, Indigenous educators, ITEC committees, to look at establishing a mathematics framework. Yeah, so we're very excited about addressing that.
So any brief comments or questions on this that we're being asked to digest it, read it, think about it? And staff certainly welcome through the superintendent questions. And it's part of what we're going to be addressing in the future. Mike, you're small there on the screen because it's up on the screen. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, it says in there, it says on the second page of this presentation, it says, what is the HAWD report? And I'd like to ask that same question. In here, it says, these are things that relate to it. But is this HAWD report, is it a ministry report? Can we compare our Aboriginal report to other school districts?
No, so it is a ministry report, yes. And there is a provincial report that the ministry puts out for the entire province. And then there's a how are we doing report that is specific to Coast Mountain School District.
But now our report is our report with all of these numbers.
Yes.
So these available on the ministry's website?
No, because the data in this is masked due to student population, and that's a requirement by the ministry. We cannot post the unmasked report to a website, but the provincial report that will be found on the ministry websites and links will be provided for ours, only for the ministry website.
Okay, and now the other thing about this is, and this is quite a bit of useful data, which I like data. Now, can we nail down when we're going to have had time to study this and when we're going to get together as a group to share our input into all of this data?
Yeah, I'm asking you to look at it over the summer. If you have questions, the superintendent welcomes them when she's not on holidays, because everybody needs their break. And in the fall, we will have another dialogue with it because it'll be part of the planning that's being done by our educators.
Well, I don't find my schedule during the summer holidays to be too challenging, so just a comment.
Okay, thank you. So all in approval of receiving the report? Pass, thank you. And we move on to new business. And the first one is presented by the Secretary Treasurer. Facility grant. Page 114.
Okay, I'm gonna spell it.
Yeah, I have to go through.
Okay, meeting agenda item 11.1, the 25-26 annual facility grant expenditure plan. The 24-25 annual facilities grant, the AFG allocation for school districts for Coast Mountain School District 82 totals 2.137266 million as referenced in the attached AFG expenditure grant allocation issued by the Ministry of Infrastructure. The allocation of a school district's AFG is calculated by the Ministry of Infrastructure using a formula based on student enrollment and average age of facilities, with adjustments made for unique geographic factors. To comply with Treasury Board's direction, each school district must annually provide the Ministry of Infrastructure with an AFG project and spending plan prior to the allocation of the AFG funding. Specifically, each school district's plan will include a list of AFG projects and expenditures expected to be undertaken during the fiscal year April 1 to March 31st. At the end of each fiscal year, boards of education must report on actual AFG expenditures as part of their audited financial statements. The ministry may request further details with respect to annual facility projects and annual facility expenditures for the given school year. Attached for information is the 25-26 AFG project summary list for Coast Mountain School District AC2 as submitted to the Ministry of Infrastructure. The 25-26 AFG Ministry Expenditure Grant Allocation and Project Summary lists are being forwarded directly to the board for information. The recommended action that the board receive the information of the 2025-2026 Annual Facilities Grant, AFG Ministry Expenditure Grant Allocation, and the project summary list for Coast Mountain School District.
So moved by Karen, seconded by Lee. Any questions for our team that's here? Mike, go ahead.
I'd just like to point out that some of those school districts have like massive, like down in the Vancouver area, they're 15,000 or 16 million, 15 million. And Victoria, and there's some of those school districts that are getting a ton of money. And we're right in the middle of the bottom in the $2 million zone. Well, at least we're not Vancouver Island, which is $500,000. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comment there. And we'll all in favor of the receipt of the report? Pass, thank you. And we move on again to the carbon neutral action report. Go ahead, again, it's the Secretary Treasurer.
Hold on,
Page 118.
Page, oh, there it is. Oh, meeting agenda 1.1.2, 24 carbon neutral action report. The BC government and the BC public sector associations, including Crown corporations, university, colleges, health authorities, health affiliates, and school districts have been legislated to be carbon neutral since 2010 as part of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Targets Act and the Carbon Neutral Government Regulation. Requirements for offset purchased from Pacific Carbon Trust by PSOs are legislated under the emission offsets regulation. Annually, Coast Mountain School District 82 must report the amount of total emissions offset and its ongoing and future actions to reduce emissions through its climate change accountability report and the Clean Government Reporting Tool. Emissions are derived from stationary, mobile, and procurement sources. School District 82 serves the communities of Hazelton, Kitimat, Kitwanga, Terrace, Thornhill, and Stewart in the northwest region of British Columbia and is signatory to and supports Climate Action Charter in the province of British Columbia. The school district supports and practices sustainable initiatives to conserve energy and resources with the goal to reduce carbon emissions, reduce utility costs, and promote cleaner environment for all students and staff. Attached, the 2024 Carbon Neutral Action Report for Coast Mountain School District as submitted May 27th, 2025 is being forwarded directly to the board for information. This report will be posted on the school district's website in accordance with the report requirements. The action recommended is that the board receive for information the 2024 Carbon Neutral Action Report as presented.
I have a mover for receipt of the report and second, excuse me, seconder.
Second.
Wade, any questions? Mike, go ahead if there's a question. You're muted, Mike. I can't hear you because you're muted.
We are the greenest province in Canada, which is one of the greenest countries in the entire world, and it is pretty dang difficult to improve on perfection.
So do you have a question, Mike?
Yeah, I think well, why don't we talk to these people and give them a shake and tell them, hey, you know, we're doing pretty damn good.
Okay, our report is up on the website. All in favor of receipt? Pass, thank you. And now we move on to 11.3, and the superintendent of schools will report on the internal administrative calendar.
Thank you. So can you please reference the attached draft internal administrative calendar for 2025-2026 school year? The following proposed changes to the 2025-2026 internal administrative calendar are presented for trustees' consideration. Firstly, that the November Education Committee meeting be scheduled on Wednesday, November 19th, due to a BCSSA meeting conflict for the district education team during the week of November 10th.
Okay.
Because we'll be traveling.
Yes.
During that time. The committee and board meetings not be scheduled during the month of December. There are only 2.5 weeks between the November and December board meetings, noting that this is a busy time for schools. And the Board of Education office and the district education team and trustees receive multiple invitations to attend school concert events. Currently, there are no committee and board meetings scheduled in the month of March. As discussed between the board and the Coast Mountains Teachers Federation, it was determined that teacher trustee meetings would be scheduled on non-board meeting days. This arrangement aims to provide greater flexibility in scheduling and ensure that both parties can participate without conflicting commitments. Teacher trustee meeting dates will be added to the internal administrative calendar once finalized prior to the upcoming school year. The draft internal administrative calendar is being forwarded directly to the board for consideration and acceptance. And the recommended action is that the board accept the 2025-26 internal administrative calendar.
So I need a mover and a seconder, so moved. Aaron,
Second.
Wayne. I have one, just. Highlight type of stuff, I really want to accept this and stuff, but it will require some, small renovations or. Corrections in our board governance policy, and the policy committee will act on that. Over the summer, so that we're ready to have the policies and the, calendar match, correctly, so. If I could have any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, right?
Why doesn't the board meet during the summer months and March? We get paid.
Well, we don't, we're not required to do so, and we still can be paid, so, we will review that at the policy committee as we're looking at our governance policy. All in favor?
And
Yeah.
motion I'm passing this, does the board in acceptance of us moving the November education meeting?
What we're doing is we're accepting the internal calendar, we're accepting what you presented. But I'm stating that we also have to, by September, review our governance policy and correct it to reflect this, because right now we can't do it.
Oh, and we've had the March ones over.
The March ones also need to be corrected in the governance policy, so we have some work to do to correct the governance policy, but we can still accept this.
And you just want to make sure that trustees are accepting those changes?
Yeah, they are, yeah, that's what the motion is saying. Yeah, we're accepting the calendar as you proposed, but we have some work to do to correct our policy. Otherwise, we you're doing something wrong next year. All in favor? Passed, thank you. So, we now move on to my board chair report, which is in your package, and, just celebrating the end of the year, and some of the busy work that we've been doing in the last month. And it continues, it's filled with things over the summer as well, but hopefully a little bit of a break for everybody as well. And I wanted to celebrate in my report that we did do a trustee orientation on the 31st of May and June 1st. Of which we learned, a lot of things in terms of where we want to go as a board. And what we learned, I felt reflected very much what we had in our board self reflection study as well. We have, we can always learn on how to do things best. Any questions for myself? If not, can I have a motion to receive my report for information? Thank you, Wayne. Second? Karen? Sure. Okay. All fatiguing, I'm afraid. Any questions on my report? All in favor? Yes, thank you. Now we have trustee reports. Do any trustees wish to report out on anything? Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, summer months are coming up and I will not be idle.
Okay, thank you for your comment. And do we have any questions from our audience?
Yes,
Good, go ahead.
I have two.
Okay.
I noticed that you are doing a lot of electronic communication with parents. Which is great, which is awesome. However, we need to keep in mind that not all parents have access to Wi-Fi. And we still do need to do that paper trail. Because we're losing a great audience there that is not getting the information around. So, with that. The second thing is that it's very nice that you guys had a LEA forum with administrators. However, it's very disappointing that teachers could not be involved. We have seats at the district committee with regards to Indigenous education. We have been waiting a very long time to have a conversation. And we're still not getting that, and it's very important that we also hear what Indigenous leaders would like to see in our classrooms. Because no offense, our principals, you're not important. We are the ones who providing that information to students, and if we don't know what is being asked of us. If we don't know what is being, if we don't understand what's being asked of us, because we're not there, we cannot provide that service. And that information. So, again, I would like to encourage you to have those meetings, but also include us.
Okay, so I have to reference that these are not direct questions to the board, so I asked you to bring that up with administration.
That is fine, but I need the trustees to be aware. Also, that we need to be part of the communication.
Any other questions? Up to stick to the rules, so, okay. Okay, anything else from the trustees or from the audience? Oh, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I couldn't tell who that was expressing that opinion and asking that question.
Okay, Jocelyn expressed an opinion that we've referred to administration as the way to answer or way to address her concerns.
Jocelyn,
The teachers union. She introduced herself at the beginning. I think you might have been out of the room actually at that time when we did the introductions first thing.
I was just hoping to get her last name without going through pages.
Go ahead, Bag, BAGG. I've been here numerous times, Mike.
Yeah. Can I have a motion?
No, another question.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, now, okay, so this is a question for all of the trustees. It's actually a group of questions. Now, June the 25th is last day. May I speak?
No, actually, I've just been reminded that this question period is for the public or for those not for trustees. You have a chance to ask your questions during the board meeting.
Excuse me, I'm the representative for Thorn.
Yeah, so, yeah.
My questions are from the Thornhill community.
No, they're not, as a trustee, you can't ask them at this time. If you have a question, you can send it to me or the superintendent. And we'll try and answer it if it's appropriate.
Mike, I am the representative of Thornhill, and I'm entitled to ask.
Not at this time, no, this isn't where you
Yes,
ask.
I am.
No, sorry, remember in our workshop, we were very clear about that. So I'm going to.
You can't just make up shit like this.
Excuse me?
Careful, let's close the meeting, please. All closed, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
So.